Click links to join the channel over at SubScribe. So Diversity Hire Captain America gave an interview and said the character doesn't represent America, even though it's literally in the name. I mean, actors should really stick to the script when giving interviews. So I assumed this movie was going to do a whole lot better. And this says the numbers are good, but when I compare it to other movies and then you adjust in this genre and then adjust it for inflation, it seems to be on the low end. And the problem is they're not including the reshoots, and it had like a month of reshoots. What that costs, you'll find out, next year when the quarterly reports come out. So the movie's going to make money, but I don't see it doing it, like they're playing it up like it's doing stronger, and I don't quite see the vibe for that. So I started watching it thanks to some anonymous Pakistani with a high definition camera and a gimbal. Those things are really worth the money. It was a pretty good copy of the film, and I'm waiting the whole time I'm watching it. I'm kind of waiting for someone else to come on screen, for someone with leading character vibe or some familiar faces, to somebody, like you're waiting for the leading character. What the warm up to the movie is before the main character, the Fonzie character, steps on, into camera view and adjusts his jacket. And it's like, okay, now the movie starts, and you realize, oh, no, this Anthony Mackie is the lead character. It's like, he doesn't really have leading character energy. He's a great sidekick, but not a leading character. But I guess enough people are interested in the Marvel universe. And that's kind of a problem when you don't care about the character. And he kind of feels like a chimera, child's creation of a character where they just start throwing powers together, and he's got these I don't know, vibranium wings or adamantium or whatever. It's the Wakanda wings, and he's able to fight the Hulk, and and he can fly, and he's got the shield. It's like, yeah, why don't you just have him, with webbing and whatnot. So the thing is, I kind of want to see him get killed off and replaced by a better character, which would be almost anyone, the Winter Soldier or the real Captain America, because that was the only role that Chris Evans was good at. He seemed to love that role, other than Not Another Teen Movie back in '99, which was fantastic. And if you want to have a laugh, you can go, sailing and find a few Captain America films from the '70s, '80s, and '90s, the Golden Globus films, and they're fun for what they are. And so what there are in movies, the difference between getting you to go to the theater and drive and pay the $15, and it's a whole thing sort of, is that there are 18 characters that are known worldwide by people who don't care about Hollywood or the genre at all. They're Spider-Man, Superman, and Batman. Most every other character is a little bit of a step down, and then there's the B-League characters like Iron Man and Wolverine. But the difference to the discrepancy between comic books and Hollywood is that they were able to take the B-League characters and they just kept making movies with them. Each one of those characters made like 6 movies, or have been in over 6 movies, and they became as well known as the A-Team characters, all because of the power of the actors in Hollywood getting behind them. And then you have the team characters, X-Men, Avengers, Justice League, who are a step down, but they're still popular. And then everyone else, like Aquaman and Nemo, who are all potentially great stories, but they're not well-known characters, and name recognition plays a big part in getting people into the theater. So there's this collection that you'll get out of the house, go to the put on your pants, go to the theater for, eat the popcorn, and it was worth it. It was a whole experience, and Marvel had a lot of goodwill with the movies, and that concept of goodwill with Marvel in specific and Hollywood in general is an important factor, because it's changing pretty rapidly when Hollywood's making a lot of movies that are not finding an audience, which is a charitable way of saying it. Then you got secondary characters and even tertiary ones like Blue Beetle. Is that Marvel or DC? That would be a really bottom of the list characters. But between them, you get like Hulk, Captain America, Black Widow, Black Adam, The Flash, The Eternals, Batgirl. A movie so bad, DC made it and didn't release it. And they do go, $100 million. Well, we're going to have to write it as a loss for taxes. Shazam 1 and 2, Suicide Squad 1 and 2, the various Thors, Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy, Deadpool. And those movies did well because you had Ryan Reynolds and Chris Pratt. And then you got like Ant-Man with Paul Rudd, who everybody likes Paul Rudd, and he's massively successful in Hollywood because he's made so many movies that have done well, but he's not as well known as Spider-Man, and he's not a leading character, where a Chinese grandma on a farm probably heard of Superman, but not the other characters, or some little kid in Bumfuckistan has got a Spider-Man t-shirt, and they're kind of vaguely familiar with the character. So you got this collection of characters that people will go to the theater for, and the rest, people are just going to wait for streaming. They've got, huge TVs these days, and you got a sound bar and all this kind of stuff, and it's like a pretty decent experience watching. You've got like a 5-foot TV or something, and high quality audio. And then there's Goodwill and the Woo-Flu are tied into all this as well. The Woo-Flu, because nobody wanted to go to the theaters in the middle of that, and the Michael Crichton book Contagion, where somebody coughs and there's a little particle going around. You don't want to be seated next to the next Typhoid Mary type of stuff. Even people who like myself, were on the right and didn't take the whole thing seriously. Hashtag pureblood. I wasn't eager to go to a theater either and have to wear a mask for 2 hours. So we got and then I think they closed the theaters anyway for like 4 years. So what happened is we got really comfortable staying home with, you might pay for one service like Disney Plus or something, and then if there was stuff on the other services, you're not going to pay for every single service. So I have a friend who does. The guy has like everything on his TV. It's absolutely unreal. And what most people will do are just going to, fire up the VPN and cruise the sail the seas over to our friends in Russia and get the rest of the stuff for free. But then as Disney keeps raising prices, they lose the audience. And yes, you can go sailing for stuff if you want, but it's also a question of why bother. It feels like this whole superhero genre is definitely winding down because Marvel has had too many movies that are just not worth the bother. They start to come back with Deadpool 3 and Wolverine, and people really like those characters, and that was just a milquetoast movie, but it was a move in the right direction, and all they had to do was follow that vibe. It's like, just don't get in your own way. You see the audience likes these characters, it likes this movie. Go in that direction, and they look at you and they go, no, we're going to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. You got Wesley Snipes, Jennifer Gardner, Channing Tatum, I think was the guy, and you've got the perfect Marvel Suicide Squad. Like, people like those characters. They're still in shape. They're still there. It's like people would rather you have these 90s throwback characters and go in a slightly different direction with it, which means obviously Disney will not do that. Then you got to factor in the Marvel fans. And yeah, Wesley Snipes is black. Like, don't forget. Oh, but they want to replace him with a female or something. Then you got to factor in the Marvel fans who are watching the streaming shows. Though I doubt anyone watched all of them. They just were bad. And then the Star Wars streaming was even worse. So I don't know about that crowd. So then the audience that doesn't watch the streaming shows, they're wondering like, oh, do I need to go back and watch something that's part of the setup to the movie? And not really. The movie holds together fine on its own, but Harrison Ford is the only real actor in the movie. And you watch it and you get that feeling like he's big on screen, a big gravitas character, and everyone else is in the background and they should be in black and white almost, where the movie comes across feeling very light and fluffy. And there's another point where after 4 years of I'll say diversity, communist terrorism, and Malamensay activities, they would have been better off if you made the president, the antagonist and the protagonist, the same group of people. Because when you've got this, Anthony Mackie is the diversity hire, and he's lecturing the president who doesn't look like him, it sets up a conflict that because of the current day politics, people are very tired of that type of conflict. They have, one might even say, fatigue from that situation. And the other problem using Harrison Ford is that's an actor that's been in some of the biggest movies that these audiences are familiar with, the Indie and the Star Wars and a bunch of other stuff as well, Blade Runner. So having that juxtaposition, that conflict between the two characters, fair and dark and well-known, huge actor versus small actor, it's just weird. It just feels like too much on the nose with the Trump comparison. And I assume before the reshoots, oh yeah, here's the audience breakdown. It's just kind of interesting. You got a much browner audience to see this because it was a brown movie. I don't think there's any actual pure European people in it. The thing is, it was too much of a Trump stuff, and there's probably I would love to see what it was like before, $50 million in reshoots, where Disney got the vibe that, oh, okay, Trump got elected. There's definitely a vibe shift out there. If we continue in this direction, the movie's going to bomb. And they wisely spent a lot of money, and they fixed it enough to make a movie that won't bomb, which all it has to function is as a placeholder, and they're going to call that a success. Because people are, after the current, the previous events, the diverse domestic terrorism, essentially, people are really not interested in seeing that so much on screen or in any lectures from the actors who we know are written from these Hollywood types who also know vacation on islands and, sacrifice babies and whatnot. So the main actors are a bunch of Pox, Walks. Then you got a Pox female guard, and then there's, I think, a Mexican sidekick, and then some mystery meat as the Black Widow type of character, which is an issue because that's supposed to be a hot chick in that role. And, you really got to have beautiful people on screen, and this movie did not have anyone beautiful. So I don't think the movie needs to have more people that the audience wants to see, even if they don't specifically identify with the Swedish bikini team type. I don't want to say Ubermensch, but attractive people attract people. So I kept kind of waiting for an actor with more gravitas to step in and push Mackie out of the way to put him in the sidekick role, because he is a lightweight sidekick. And with Chris Evans, you believe that he loved the role. The guy was great at playing a admittedly ridiculous but very fun role. And the bird guy was a great bird guy. But mixing them was a mistake, especially after his comments about not liking America. It's like, okay. And then there's an actor playing a character called Captain America, and he says he's not connected to America. It's like, you could go make Captain Africa in Africa and see how well that works out for you. There is a movie industry, I think in Nigeria, has got a very CGI heavy film, and you go, oh, this represents Africa. It's like, whether it makes money doesn't matter as long as it makes enough not to bomb, and it will, because it's a placeholder movie. But that means they have to follow it up with real actors in the next story, and everyone in this movie should be replaced. It's too many Pox in the movie, if I can say that. And it just, they don't look like they belong together. They don't look like they like each other. It just feels like a collection of two-dimensional diversity hires, because, that's exactly what it is. And it feels anachronistic. It feels a little bit a BLM, too much BLM type of energy, where Hollywood doesn't know that the audience has moved on beyond that a little bit. Am I saying fire all the non-Euro actors and replace them with blondes? You'd have a more successful movie. The more fair-skinned people were in it. No offense. So you kind of got to pick your battles when you're picking casts, where if you're going to use a black lead, then everyone else has to be Euro attractive. And this movie is not that. There's a bunch of ugly Pox, Walks, transferry otherkins in this movie, where it looks like they just went down a checklist of, hey, we're going to have a lot of women speaking, and they're going to be black and Mexican, and I don't even know what the mystery meat chicks are. The other problem that Hollywood has with black leads is Hollywood is terrified of people browner than themselves, and so they turn them into Mary Sues, where they want to show that the Shuri kind of problem with Black Panther is they want to show how smart and capable they are, so they end up doing too many things on screen. So they have too many lines. They're micromanaging the other characters. It turns them into like naggy PMS women type of thing. So the lead black will be giving too many orders and advice. It feels like there's just too much face time for him. Where if it's a white lead, the directors are confident enough in the character that he doesn't have to micromanage, because, naturally white people are awesome. You expect him to be a team player. So a white lead is a team effort, and a black lead, because Hollywood is terrified of getting yelled at on social media, has to be a Mary Sue character. And I say this, and you can objectively look at all these characters that Hollywood, at least Marvel and DC do with POCs and women. It's like they get too much agency, too much control instead of sharing it. And Hollywood just can't write POC characters. We take somebody like me, who they'd call the Hugo Boss wearing invading Poland type for not being politically correct. But I'm confident enough in the actor to make him not have to constantly prove how smart and capable he is. And Hollywood doesn't do POCs any favor when it does this, when it makes them Mary Sue's. But, for the actors, it's just a paycheck. But it's like there's a bigger picture going on here as well. There was the Witches remake of I forget the guy's name, Roland Dahl or something, some English guy who wrote The Witches, and Anne Hathaway was in it. And the movie did the same thing. They race swapped a black kid. Instead, it was like in the beginning, the original book, it was 3 English kids. And the problem was he did everything where he's a trilogy. There's a trilogy, 3 people, 2 sidekicks, but they're not supposed to be sidekicks. They're supposed to apportion out the labor and come solve puzzles, and you're supposed to share that. But in the movie, because he's a little POC kid, he was jumping in and micromanaging the other characters, and he was doing everything. So the other 2 English kids were just tag-alongs. They had them there because it was originally 3 people, but it's like they were there to be rescued by the POC kid. And it's obvious if you read the book or watched one of the other remakes. And believe it or not, Independence Day did it with Will the Cuck Smith back in, I don't know when that came out, the 90s or something. And even at the time, I noticed it because you got these 2 pilots, they're flying their F-16s around, and Will Smith is like giving instructions and orders to another pilot, and he says something like, just like I showed you. And it's like, it's too much. You're trying to say, oh, Will Smith is black, so he's a super pilot and he's a super instructor. You don't need to do, it's kind of the problem between showing and not telling, but they did it because Hollywood does that with non-white characters because they're terrified of them. And then there's a lot of problems with this movie. There's the standard problem with Marvel is you have 100-pound women beating up men. And the Scarlett Johansson character, the Black Widow character, another movie that bombed. Scarlett Johansson, at least she looked good back when she had her boobs. They replaced her with a woman who seems even smaller than Scarlett Johansson and doesn't have any boobs whatsoever. And it's bizarre. And they have her running around just beating the hell out of like 200-pound powerlifting dudes. It's nonsense. And there's a lot of problems. There's another trope where you have this in Hollywood where you have an underling talk back to a boss or a superior officer. And that's a really stupid trope because you have a hierarchy and a chain of command for a reason where the president, in this case, was a general. So he's like an Eisenhower character or maybe, I guess a Nixon. That's the illusion they want to draw it to. But he's the commander-in-chief. You don't have... The Secret Service is a security guard. They're trained somewhat, but you don't have the Secret Service talk back to the president, your commander-in-chief. If he gives you an order, tells you to do something, you're there to facilitate it, not to tell him, but that's so dangerous. You don't talk back to a superior officer like that or a boss or anything like that. You just go, okay, this is how we do it. You want to do this thing, this is how we do it. And then, in the first few minutes of the movie, there's the Falcon / Captain America / affirmative action hire drops down to a group of, they're wearing ski masks, but you can see they have fair skin under it. And he just goes through like 24 of these fair skinned people. I don't know, it's supposed to be Eastern Europeans or something, and just lays them out, of course. And then a few minutes after that, the president gets attacked. Spoilers, but you're not going to watch a movie anyway. It's not worth watching. And then the Pox walks, the female POC security guard, the Secret Service. The president has to lean on her. It's like, if you have a female Secret Service agent, you're in deep shit. Why did I say that? Oh, because we just had evidence that the whole world saw what happens when you have female Secret Service agents. But of course, she's a black female Secret Service agent. It's just... people are done with that, and people are not as anal as me about calling out this kind of stuff, but you feel it subconsciously. And like I said, if you're thinking about seeing this movie and you watch the first 5 minutes on Sailing the High Seas, you won't go to the theater for it. You'll just wait for it to come out. Even then, you might not even see it. And then another thing I noticed, maybe I'm getting older, is they took the Lord's name in vain a few times, and it was jarring because I know all these people worship Moloch, and it's like having them say Jesus a few times. It's like they're not Christian. They hate Christianity. They hate Christ. They hate Christians. So having them use that language took me out of the movie, and that is probably a particular sensitivity of mine. But that kind of blasphemy, it didn't used to be in movies. Oh, and then another thing is like this is not a kids movie. There's way more violence in this movie, not graphically shown, but it's implied. Where there's a guy goes to a prison cell and deletes 3 people, and then he deletes himself. That is, and they don't show it. It's just, seen in the shadows, seen in reflections type of stuff. But it was a total vibe shift from earlier Marvel movies. Like, this is not a kid's movie at all. I mean, no, nothing in Hollywood is for kids nowadays. Somebody on Twitter was saying, it feels like people are kind of coming out of this dream state where they go, the past 10 years of children's programming has just been communism. I wouldn't know, but they're probably right. Anyway, a movie to stream, not to go to the theater for. Oh, the other thing is, like, I did warm up to Anthony Mackie as the character after 2 hours, and the movie's 2 hours, and right at the end, I kind of warmed up to him, like, oh, he's got some charm. He feels like he warmed into the role. Oh, and that's the other thing, is the movie is a slow build. Though I think the critics say vice versa, but to me it was a slow build up because you finally warm up to the character almost at the end of the movie, and then the movie's over. It's like, and the other thing is, like, in the current woke environment where there's such a binary between people and they're getting further and further apart, a political movie like this is never going to be a big hit. It's too much problems. So I like this. It's doing okay right now, but they didn't factor in the reshoots. So they're factoring it as a $180 million movie, and they go, oh yeah, it's done $40 million so far, and tonight it'll double that. But you got to factor in, like, the reshoot costs. So it's might be, who knows how much it is, but it's definitely over $200 million. And will it have legs? Well, it doesn't have an overseas audience because it's all non-white actors. So I don't know. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. See you guys on the next episode.